Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's what I thought you meant, but I wasn't sure.
It just, when you talk.
When you
It's
do that with your
also-
mother, you get knocked
It's
out.
also
I'm on doing that.
Yes,
I missed it. You said the click is what? And what do you use it for?
to show,
Oh, it's impolite?
yes,
like
yeah, to
this.
show.
I don't use it, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to know.
Someone's clicking me.
Look, we do that. Look, we do that to babies.
Oh, okay.
Like, oh, little baby.
Make all these weird noises.
So I already mentioned that Akan is the name of the language and it's also the name of its speakers. And there are many dialects, but they are clustered into Equiapim, Ashanti, and Fante. So we talk about Equiapim Tree, Ashanti Tree, and Fante. And it's spoken as a first language in 8 regions in the southern part. I pointed out Ashanti region, Eastern region, Central region, Bono East, Bono Ahafo. And it has many more people as, it has 47.5% of the population as its first language speakers, but then many more as the L2 speakers. Well, I said that it's a potential national language, but people won't have it.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive, so we don't even broach the subject. It's spoken in parts of La Côte d'Ivoire, which is Ivory Coast. Yeah. So you have Akan speakers in there. We have similar names, naming systems, and all that. So Akan, in terms of governance, we have a king, and it's usually a hierarchical structure with the king. We have the Ashanti king, the king of the Ashantis, as the most important kings, the most important king among the Akan speaking people, and all the other kings or all the other chiefs, they call them paramount chiefs, they owe allegiance to him. So all the Akan speaking people, they owe allegiance to the Ashanti king. The Ashanti king, as you're going to find out, is a very powerful king. When you go to the Ashanti region, he owns all the land in the Ashanti region. All the lands in the Ashanti region belongs to him. In fact, you should see him dancing. He just does this, does that. Everything belongs to him. He's very powerful. When you see him, he is decked with a lot of gold. Pure gold. You find it on his arms, on his feet, and he sits on the gold. The Ashanti Kingdom is where we had a lot of gold deposits in the past. So Anglo gold, Ashanti, it's in his kingdom of Obuasi. So all the gold in Ashanti belongs to him. They pay royalties to him, a certain percentage of the gold. So he is seen as the custodian of all the gold in there. Yes.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about what a queen mother is, and then my second question is the kingship and chieftaincy.
Yes.
Are they considered? They're not elected officials, right?
No. They are not elected officials.
Okay.
It is more of a hereditary.
Yes.
Yes. So
So does this king though collaborate with elected? Like I'm asking, do they?
So in Ghana, the kings and the chiefs are not expected to take part in political activities.
Just like secure the culture.
So they actually are supposed to be not apolitical. They shouldn't meddle in political activities.
They are neutral.
So yes.
Okay.
And they have a lot of,
Power.
they wield a lot of power and respect.
Power.
So if there are issues in the nation between the various political parties, sometimes they defer to the kings for resolution.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I have
maybe
another question, I'm not sure.
yeah, two big political parties have a problem and they have differences they can't resolve. The Ashantihini can step in. The Ashantihini is very, 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 very powerful.
Okay.
And the same would go for a queen mother?
No.
Okay.
The queen mothers are not, in some parts, the queen mothers are very, very important, but the Ashantihini has a queen mother, but the queen mother is not the wife of the king.
But they're very powerful, right?
Yes, they're powerful.
So
She's not the wife of the king. She is a female traditional leader, but they work together as a pair. So the king has his queen mother. Yeah.
So the queen mother has more power than the king's wife?
No.
Yes.
No. Oh, yes.
Than the
Yes.
king's wife, yes. The queen mother has more power than the king's wife. The king's wife has no power.
She's just the wife.
It's just a house.
She's just the wife. But the
So I think
queen
that is
mother-
also a powerful role. Let's not get that twisted.
Yes.
He got some
But the
power.
queen
Now,
mother
that's a
is
powerful
very-
role,
The
yes.
queen mother is
It's
very
just
powerful.
different.
In fact, I should say this about the queen mother.
Well, maybe here.
Among the Ashanti kingdom, the queen mother is the one who determines who sits on the throne.
Okay.
So there is a history behind that. The queen mother determines who the next heir of the throne is. Because in the past, we understand that when the kings went to war, when the men went to war, this is one account, the other account. So let me see that when the men went to war, they weren't very sure when they came back. I mean, they went to war for a long time. They had ways of reckoning time then, but they didn't really have the calendars to say we left 9 months ago in January or something. So they thought they went away for a very long time. And they'll come back only to hear that their wives had given birth to children. And they weren't sure if those children were theirs. There was no way of proving paternity then. And so what they did was the women, the children belonged to the women, not to the men. So in our current traditional setup, the children belong to the mother, and a child inherits from her mother's brother, not her father. The rationale behind that was that, well, if it is my sister's child, I am very sure that we share
A bloodline. The bloodline.
the same, in fact, we talk about the blood. We have the same blood. But if it is my wife's child, I am not sure if I am the father. It's possible that I'm taking care of somebody else's son. But my sister's
That's a
child,
whole nother
I am
conversation.
very certain that there is a part of me in that person. So because of that, the women, the children were usually say they owed more allegiance to their uncles than to their fathers. And the uncles spent more on their nephews than their children, their nephews and their nieces, than their own children, because their nephews and their nieces, they are sure they belong to the same blood.
Wow.
So there is a term in Akan, we say wafa. Wafa, my uncle. If somebody is your uncle, the person is responsible for you. So we say wafa.
Oh, well, look,
My
I'm
wafa.
owed some money. I got 5 uncles now. Hold
And
on.
there is a current issue about one of our top political aides who died. You've heard about Sir John. Yes. He left most of his property to his nephew.
This can be Google.
Yes, you can Google it. You find the amount of property he left to his nephew. You'll be amazed.
They have his will.
His will.
What's his name?
Yes. Sir John.
Sir John?
Yes, Sir John's will. The things, the landed property, the houses,
The
the
cars.
cars, the bank account, everything to his nephew. He's very sure that one belongs to him. But, so among the Ashantis, that is the thing.
So he didn't leave anything to his children?
He did. So
He did, he would give, yes. Now, I mean, these days, people will give some to their children, but they'll give more to their nephews.
Wow.
Yes.
Did he have a wife?
Well, that's another story.
Google said.
Look,
Yes.
tea time.
So have you found it?
Yes.
Sir John, yes.
Yeah, I'm looking
So
at it.
you see his will, Sir John's will. So it's a big issue in Ghana now.
Wow.
Yes, you were going to ask a question, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I have it. I'll can only remember one.
I'm
So
sorry, please.
the one about, because I did have a similar question as Jamie. So that there's like a dual political system that exists here, right? Like a traditional one and then one that's a result of colonization. Because previous to colonization was like, say,
The traditional system was stronger.
or was it the only?
Yeah, previous
was the
to
only.
before colonization, yes.
That was the only.
Yes, that was the only. So it's colonization that introduced this whole political system that we have now.
So some years ago when I came, we visited a more rural place called Old Tapo.
Yes.
And they were having, the council was meeting, and we were able to witness their council,
Observe,
right? And so they had issues, people came to the council that had issues that were like minor, I don't wanna say crimes, but offenses.
Yes.
Offenses, but then they said that offenses like murder and things like that, they would go to the actual court. Is it the same like with, in this situation where there are only certain things that are dealt with by the?
Yeah, because they have structures for things like murder, they would send them to the courts. So depending on the gravity of the offense, now, because of the civil structure that they have, they rather send them to courts and use the processes that are entrenched in the Constitution for such things. But if it's got to do with traditional things, then they will be able to resolve them.
So there's a mutual respect between the two.
Yeah.
And they work in tandem.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Okay, so and I have two questions.
Yeah.
How do you
Again.
become a queen mother? Like, is it associated with a bloodline that you become queen mother, or is it like, okay, that's the first question. The second question is, with the king and the queen mother and their position is like trying to be apolitical, is there, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this without my American lens. Is there a way that the two of them perhaps negotiate or advocate for their particular group of people at the state level to receive resources, or is there expectation that these people, both the queen mother and the king, can provide the resources that the state perhaps cannot? Does that
Okay.
make sense?
So, thank you very much for those two questions. The first one is easier to understand,
Okay.
answer, so I'll answer that first. Yeah. So how does one become a queen mother? There are families would think of as royal families, and the kingship rotates, and the queenship rotates amongst those families. And even within those families, it is only the queen mother who knows who the next person should be. So the king's son cannot be heir to the throne. It is only the king's sister's son. Yes. It's only the queen's sister's son who can sit on the stool. And the stool, in fact, the stools are different. One of the stools, women don't sit on it. It's only men who sit on it. If a woman sits on it, it's going to be a big taboo. Yes. So they have the queen's stool and the king's stool. And it's the queen. The queen is powerful to the extent that she decides who sits on that stool. And because of that, the king owes her some kind of allegiance. So it's a very complicated thing. The queen is not supposed to be as powerful openly as the king, but she is the one who determines who the king is. So
Chess.
if there is anything, it's just like chess.
Yeah,
Yes.
the king can only move on,
Yes.
but
So
the queen
if
must
there is
stop.
Come on,
anything,
Orlando, come on.
if there is anything, it's the king who has, it's the queen who has control over the king. So if anything is going wrong in the kingdom, and it's got to do with the king, it's the queen who resolves it. But on a day-to-day basis, it's the king who is the powerful person.
The face
So
of
the
it.
queen is the kingmaker.
They-
So
they-
the queen is the kingmaker.
But the queen,
Yeah, the queen
Yeah.
Yes,
So
done.
they need to show accord a lot of respect to the queen, especially the sisters, because she will determine which one of the children
Which one of
Mm.
them?
of the children of the women should be the next person who ascends the throne. So they had a way of rotating it. So it was this person's children first. So the next, after a certain period, it goes to the other person's children. And so there's a way of rotating. But amongst them, the queen is the custodian of that kind of roster, if you can put it that way. So she says, this is when this person will go to. Then in terms of if I understand your question very well, in terms of allocation of resources, is it the traditional or the politically
Yeah, like
appointed?
who, that's why I said I don't wanna put my American
Yeah.
lens on, but I do understand, like, Nzinga said, there are two systems operating.
Yeah.
And one, it sounds like one is still more powerful than the other.
Yes,
But you also
on,
said that.
but on different planes.
Right, but you also said that the Queen Mother and the King are apolitical entities, but they
Yes.
also represent groups of people.
Yeah.
So when it comes time for allocation of resources on the other side, who advocates?
It's a politically appointed person, but then the kings also have power in their kingdoms. So if it has to do with
So it's like, I don't wanna say informal, but there's less state involvement and more
so we have members of parliament who represent different
Mhm.
constituencies. Those members of parliament fight for development in those communities. But also the kings and the queens ensure that their communities are
Okay,
developed.
yes, that's
I want you
That's okay.
to, I want you to stay there and then tell them also, Dr. Anderson, that what we have in Great Britain, I keep on saying it, many of you will touch on it. What you have in Great Britain, which is unwritten constitution, which places the Queen of England as one of the neutral political institutions, was borrowed from this country.
So
Because if we look at the history of Ashanti Ile and the stool of Ashanti, there was a need for British government to actually, I know we're going to discuss that further.
yeah, in the history.
There is a need for the British government to really find out why the Ashanti has very strong control, and they wanted to take that stool by all means possible. So up to today, it's just like in my own mind, the culture of Ethiopia and the culture of India, which one comes first? We have to research on this.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, for many of you, when you guys look at the King of Ashanti and how European British government wanted to take the stool, and it was really a female woman actually
Yes,
who decided what the king didn't want to do. So
Yeah.
when I was telling you guys the importance of women, all of you were thinking that I'm pretending. No. There was a time I don't see any person, a woman, as somebody that. But now I realize that women are so powerful
Oh, In the Ashanti
Women are
Kingdom,
so
the women are
intelligent.
powerful. Yeah.
Women are
Say that
so
again. I
brilliant.
said in the Ashanti Kingdom, the women are.
Yes,
very
I have to
powerful.
say it.
Very, very
So
powerful.
I wanted all of us to really research on Ghana, because when you look at African history, when she wrote here the first time, the land of freedom, it wasn't an exaggeration. It was a practical reality. So how do we claim that victory if we don't know the history? Because otherwise, your visit here now is nothing. You just hearing it from the horse's mouth. So when you hear it from the horse's mouth, many of you who are going to be a future PhD can pick up a topic that you can study abroad without you spending money. This is one of the topics. British government came here, saw important opportunity in terms of leadership kingdom, and wanted to destroy it. And eventually, women stood up and deceived them. And that is one of the reasons why I love Ghana.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, can I have one? Clap for you.
I forgot.
What is the interaction of the Queen Mother and the Queen?
Huh?
The Queen Mother and the Queen.
No,
And the wife.
sorry, the King's wife. Sorry.
Okay, so the Queen Mother is usually from the royal family. So she is a member of the king's family.
Okay.
But the queen is from another family. It's just his wife. So the queen does not really. The queen, she just, it's his wife. She doesn't even come into the space. This is more of the structure, the traditional political structure. So she is behind the scenes, and the Queen Mother is the one who is operating as the woman in that space.
Let's follow it up a little bit. Can the queen, I mean the king, the king Ashanti, can he marry from a regular family?
Yes.
Yes.
He
So
can, oh yeah. So
that's what I'm trying to
yes. That's an interesting question. So in some places, you have to marry from another royal family. In the case of the Ashanti Hine, it's not really mandatory for him to marry from another royal member. They have a way of determining who he can marry, because among their clans we have clans. We shouldn't be in the same clan. We shouldn't marry from the same clan. Same true. Yes. So there are certain restrictions, but you can marry from another family. Stacey, I saw your hand.
Yes, this goes back. So, because I'm looking at this lineage thing. So if I'm a woman born into a family that has like no brothers,
Yes.
my children are kind of like, they're gonna be out there. Like,
I was gonna ask that
they have
question
nobody
too.
to.
Yes. So if you have no brothers, it is your next male king that becomes your children's uncle.
But your cousins are your brothers, remember that.
So they have your sister's brothers, your sister's sons, or some other men in your family become their uncles.
So there's never a boy. There's always somebody.
Basically,
All right.
yeah. So we are actually, we don't see ourselves, we don't have really a nuclear family. We have an extended family system. So everybody in that family is your relative. You share the same land with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you one thing now. In America, we are suffering from a new hybrid.
From what?
A new we. I say, like foreigners there, what the Anderson is saying, for example now, when she was telling me, said in the morning, you can call me auntie. Auntie here doesn't, in our own concept, auntie is the closest person.
Yeah.
Uncle is the closest person. In America, every child we have calls people auntie, I will tell them, this is your auntie's and the uncles.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
When we
I
did
don't
that,
do that.
I don't let
I'm
my
not
kids call
saying you,
anybody
I'm
that's
saying
not blood,
us.
but a lot of people do it.
we did that because we're foreigners today.
Yeah, yeah.
We are a
Same
hybrid.
as, yes.
So now, they have 3 families
Mhm.
who don't have any blood relationship
Yeah.
whatsoever. Because of this concept of
Yeah.
auntie, and when they were growing up, they thought they have blood relationship.
So they
Yeah.
couldn't
And
marry.
now they wanted to marry, the parents were arranging, this is you can marry this person.
Yeah.
He said, Mommy, you told me that this is
My
mine.
brother. Yeah.
We have a problem now
Yeah,
in America.
yeah. I
In
can imagine.
Maryland, in Atlanta, and in Houston.
Yeah.
It's creating a problem.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how to mediate
Address
from
that,
it.
yeah. I think that I can see where you're coming from, where people who originally didn't have any blood, they didn't share any blood with somebody now associate with them as
Auntie and
auntie or
uncle.
uncle or something like that. But I think that it should be possible to, delink certain relations at certain points. So they don't share blood with you, so you can marry the person. But that's a big and interesting way to look at it. Yes.
So since we're on the topic of just gender, right? I'm thinking, in terms of like having a queen mother, I asked someone yesterday about like discrimination in the workplace, in terms of like women not being able to afford the same privileges as men, and she said, pretty much she said, oh no, in Ghana we can rise as much as we want. Like we don't, that's not really a thing here. Can you speak more to that?
Well, I mean, they don't see it as a thing, but because things are changing. But in the past, it was a big issue.
Okay.
Yeah. In the past, it was a big, but these days, things are changing. So, the workplaces, typically, we won't have any discrimination